And every day when I think about how embarrassing this story is that I just told you guys, every day the only thing I can think of is how grateful I am that this actually happened to me. Because the lessons that I was able to learn from it, I'm able to keep forever and share it with you guys so you don't have to make these same mistakes that I made. They're gonna come with you to the club. If somebody tries to accost them or mug them or assault them outside the club, it is your job as a man to protect them. But once they're in the club, if they wanna leave with some drug dealer, it is not your job to save them. Okay, don't save them, they don't wanna be saved. Guys, I want you to remember this, okay? Say it to yourself. The game is real even if you don't wanna play it. Even if you don't wanna play the game, it's always real, it never goes away. Man, I'm telling you right now, my last relationship, if I stayed in and stayed at home as much as she wanted to, I would not have a business. I would have no friends, I would be fat, I would have no business. What's going on, y'all? It's Michael Sartain here again, and I'm still out here in West Hollywood. And I really, after last night's incredible event, we did Babes in Toyland and Pink Party, I had a thought about something that has really been irking me recently. And then this is the idea that the game is real even when you don't want to play it. I just really came to some realizations, like in the last couple weeks. I had a guy come on a call recently and he started talking about there was this girl that he liked and she was different and he was gonna fly her out. He'd never gone on a date with her, never slept with her, nothing. They're just messaging each other back and forth. He's like sending her gifts. And then of course later, you all know, I don't have to tell any of you who are fans of this channel, you know exactly what happened. She just like, she took the money for the plane ticket. She never messaged him back. She ghosted him. You know, find out later she has a boyfriend, etc., etc. You guys know. I don't have to tell you the story. And the reason why I don't have to tell you is because you know that the game is real. Even if you don't want to play the game is real. So I'm gonna tell you guys a story I've never told on camera before. This would have been 2007. There was this nightclub called Fever in Atlanta, Georgia. Do you guys remember? If you guys remember Fever, put it in the chat. You guys remember? This place was only open for 1 year. And the reason why, because it was too crazy. I saw Kim Kardashian in Fever. I saw Carmen Electra in Fever. I'm pretty sure I saw Paris Hilton in Fever. This place was nuts. They spent a ton of money on promotions and people were just getting wild. It was an old mansion and in the basement was like the nightclub. So one time I met this girl at Fever. Her name was Sydney. And I thought she was the prettiest girl I'd ever seen in my whole life. I was like, man, this girl is incredible. And the thing that was so crazy about it is like, because she was so attractive, I was like, I understood the game was real, but because she was so attractive in my mind, I started thinking she was special. Remember, she didn't do anything to make me think she was special. She was just attractive. Have you ever done this before, guys? Have you ever gone into a situation before where a girl was just attractive and you started treating her different? If you're doing so, remember, you're telling the world, you're telling yourself, and you're telling her that she's special. But what did she do to earn this special treatment? The answer is she had big boobs. There was nothing else she did. So I meet this girl, Sydney, and I meet her one weekend. We message each other back and forth. And I was like, hey, you know, I'll be back in town next weekend. I was a captain at Robins Air Force Base in Warner Robins, Georgia, and I would go up to Atlanta every weekend. So next weekend I went up there. She went there and she drank out of a cap. I saw her. This is how wild this club was. She drank out of a bottle cap. Those of you who remember, 15 years ago, you know what that meant. She took some GHB and she eventually sat there and she peed on herself and pooped on herself in the bathroom, and she was unconscious. And they had to call an ambulance. I called an ambulance for her because she was actually unconscious. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I got to rescue this girl. So I make sure I literally pick her up in my arms. She peed and pooped on herself. And in my mind, at this point, it's like the hottest girl I've ever seen in my life. And I sit there and I take her to the ambulance. And then I leave the club. I'm having a good time. Remember, I just drove an hour and a half from Warner Robins to Atlanta to enjoy my time at this club. I go to the hospital and I wait hours for her to get like a catheter or some shit, for her to get medical treatment. And at the end, I go into her hospital room, and she's there, and she almost like looks annoyed to see me. And part of it is she's embarrassed, right? I mean, all this stuff happened to her. She has a catheter in her. She's still in her like sparkly ass dress. And I'm like, and I hold her hand for a second. I was like, hey, I just want to make sure everything's good. I'm gonna get out of here. And I was cool. And she was like thankful, but that was about it. And in my mind, I'm like, oh man, I won. She's for sure gonna be my girlfriend now. I just saved her. Not in my mind thinking, why the do you care about some girl who took a cap of G in a club and pooped on herself? At no point did that ever cross my mind. The only thing I was thinking was, man, this girl's so hot. I've proved myself as a white knight, as a savior for her, and I'm gonna win. Of course I'm gonna win, man, because the world is fair and you get what you pay for, and when you're a good person, only good things happen to you, and that was the type of Disney shit that I was thinking about at the time. So you guys already know how the story ends. I don't even have to tell you. In fact, write in the chat, write in the comments right now if you know how the story ends. If you can guess. Before I even tell you, take a second, pause the video, write in the comments how you think this story is gonna end. So a week later, I message her like one time. She actually says thank you. I'm like, hey, I'm going back to Fever, this club again, and I'm gonna bump into her. And I was like, man, we're gonna be like, after that, we're like gonna be together. I just know it. And I'm 30 years old. This is 17 years ago. I should know better, right? So we go to Fever, and she's there. And for a second, I see her for a second, like when she walks in, and then I don't see her again for the entire night. I can't find her the entire night. I don't know what happened to her. And I'm like, oh man, maybe she got sick again or something like that happened. Fast forward 2 days later, and this is, remember, I've told you guys this before, I started hanging out with guys who were really, really good with women. It started in Atlanta, like some nightclub promoters, and I stopped listening to pickup artists. I only paid attention to dudes who were like crushing it with women. One of my buddies, Johnny, we were hanging out, I think we were having lunch like a couple days later, and Johnny tells me, he goes, I go, what did you do Saturday night when we were at Fever? He goes, oh yeah, man, I bumped into this girl, I was talking to her, whatever, and there's some beds at the upstairs part of Fever. He goes, yeah, I took her up there and I f***ed her up there. I was like, who was it? He goes, oh, it was this Asian girl named Sydney. Bro, you know how hard I tried to not make a face? You know how hard I tried? Bro, I saved this girl's life the week before. This dude, by the way, let me point out something else. This guy was 6 inches shorter than me. This dude meets the girl, hangs out with her one time, ends up having with her in a like a little bed. It was like a prop bed. There's a nightclub there's a club in Atlanta called Bed, where everybody, like, you got your drinks on a bed. It was like that. And this dude meets her after one day, and he ends up having her, like, immediately when he meets her. And I'm sitting here like trying to save her ass after she pooped and peed on herself. And it was that moment, like it was a level of clarity that I needed to be reminded, hey, what's going on, man? What's going on? Some people watch the podcast. What's going on, brother? Hey, it is, brother, thank you. So they're sitting there, I'm sitting there like in shock. I put all this work in, man. And this is one of the things we say in Men of Action. It is always your job to protect your friends, but it is never your job to save them. Say that to yourself. You got some homegirls that go with you to a club, and you love them. They're like your friends. You might even be attracted to some of them. They're gonna come with you to the club. If somebody tries to accost them, or mug them, or assault them outside the club, it is your job as a man to protect them. But once they're in the club, if they wanna leave with some drug dealer, it is not your job to save them. Okay, don't save them. They don't wanna be saved. This was something I had to learn the hard way. And every day, when I think about how embarrassing this story is that I just told you guys, every day, the only thing I can think of is how grateful I am that this actually happened to me. Because the lessons that I was able to learn from it, I'm able to keep forever and share it with you guys so you don't have to make these same mistakes that I made. Guys, I want you to remember this, okay? Say it to yourself. The game is real, even if you don't want to play it. Even if you don't want to play the game, it's always real. It never goes away. No matter how much you want the game to not be real, it's always there. So it was very frustrating for me the other day when I heard this guy again. He was saying, I'm paying for this girl to fly out to see me, and he had never hooked up with her. I don't know if you guys remember, but Justin Waller, on his most recent appearance on my podcast, he came on there and he was talking about a guy who basically met this girl one time, hooked up with her, and then gave her like $2 million in crypto, and she stole all the money. It was a crazy thing. Go back and watch the episode with me and Justin Waller. It was one of the craziest things ever. And once he came to the realization that this girl had been lying to him the whole time, and finally came to the realization he wasn't never gonna get that money back, he started crying. He started crying in our studio. It was one of the craziest things ever. You wanna know why that happened? I'll tell you why. Because he thought, because of the good feelings he got, because that one time he had sex with her, he thought he didn't have to play the game anymore. I need you guys to remember this. You've been married for 30 years. If you ask guys who've been married for 30 years, you know what they're gonna tell you? They're gonna tell you you still have to play the game. Rollo Tomasi calls it dread. Dread, it's not that you need to cheat on your girl, but your girl needs to think that you can. If your girl thinks that you could never cheat on her because you're so fat and such a loser, you got problems, pimp. I'm sorry to be the one to let you know. The world is not fair, guys. I need you to understand this. The world is not fair. No matter what you think, no matter how much you want the world to be fair, you will always have to play this game. And what we're looking for as men, because we want peace, is we would love to have this beautiful woman that apparently all these other men want, and beautiful women who are always, hey, there he goes. What's going on, man? What are you doing, brother?
How are you?
Good to see you, brother.
Sorry,
how you doing?
I didn't want to bother.
No, it's okay. You have these beautiful women, and we want other people to like. We want to date the most beautiful women, but at the same time, we want to pretend like they're not going to be getting stimulus from other people, wealthy people, rich people, superstars, movie stars. They're going to get that attention. And we want to live in this world where we think, okay, I've got this beautiful woman, she's incredible to me, and I can just chill, bro. I can just start watching Netflix. I don't have to be so aggressive. You got two problems, man, about the game when it comes to the game. Number one, the game is real, whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you want it to be real. Meaning like her attraction cues and attraction triggers are gonna be real no matter what. No matter how comfortable she makes you feel. And the best explanation I've ever seen for this is from a book by Jonathan Haidt called The Happiness Hypothesis. He talks about the elephant and the rider. The elephant and the rider. The elephant, I want you to think about that as your subconscious. The rider, I want you to think about that as your conscious. So your conscious, the rider, he thinks he's in control. He can make the elephant turn right, he can make the elephant turn left, but what he can't do is make the elephant jump off a cliff, and he can't make the elephant not be hungry or not take a poop. The rider thinks he's in control, but he really isn't. The elephant is in actual control, but the difference is the rider is the one that does all the talking, and the elephant is the one that actually has the desires and is way more powerful. So I want you to think about this. When you're having a conversation with a woman, or a man, anybody, when you're having the conversation, you're only having the conversation with the rider, not the elephant. You're only having the conversation with the conscious, not the subconscious. And when you're having that conversation, the conscious is gonna say anything it has to say to make itself feel better, or in order to create the narrative that person, the whole person, the elephant and the rider, needs to feel good. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody and you know they're saying what they want you to believe. So, for instance, a woman who keeps making bad relationship choices, and she tells you that she's only interested in good guys who are sapiosexuals. She only wants good, smart guys. She's saying that. What is that? You're hearing the rider tell you what it wants you to believe, but if you pay attention to the elephant, which is her actions, then you'll see that something else is coming to fruition. So I want you to think of the rider as the words, the conscious as the words, and I want you to think of the elephant as the actions, okay? So you're having a conversation with a girl, and she's like, hey, you don't need to work out that hard. Stay at home. Man, I'm telling you right now, my last relationship, if I stayed in and stayed at home as much as she wanted to, I would not have a business. I would have no friends. I would be fat. I would have no business. So the first thing, like I said before, is because there's a dualistic nature in human beings, a conscious and a subconscious, you can't listen to what they say, because when you listen to what they say, you stop playing the game. You have to only pay attention to what they do. Rule number one in Men of Action is what? You guys know the answer. Rule number one is we only pay attention to people's actions. We don't listen to the words. Okay, so now, that's the first reason why, because it's a psychological necessity. That's the first reason why you've got to keep playing the game. The second reason why is because if you don't play the game, remember, men are more competitive than women. We have 17 times more testosterone than women do. So if you don't play the game as a man, guess what? The next guy will. And he will take your girl and he will take your job. Always remember that. Just because you want to be the ethical sales guy, or you want to try to work out fewer days per week because your girl wants you to stay at home more, you believe that, but the problem is there's some guy out there who's going to work more hours than you. He's going to make more money than you. He's going to be funnier than you. He's going to put more effort into his YouTube channel than you are. He's going to bust his ass more than you. He's going to make better connections than you. He's going to get up earlier than you, because men are competitive. And those competitive men, they have no compunction against taking your girl. In fact, when they meet your girl and she ends up cheating on you with him, he doesn't even know you exist. But you wanted to believe there was no game. Guys, I got two reasons for you. Reason number one, like I said before, is the elephant in the rider. And the second reason why I said is because when you don't want to play the game, somebody else wants to play the game, and they have no problem taking your girl. So you always have to play the game. So let's talk about this. What are the rules to this game? There's a bunch of rules, but the prime rule, there's one prime rule, and all the other rules are derivatives of this prime rule. And the prime rule is actually, Orion Taraban, who came on my podcast, he actually said it probably the most succinct way I've ever heard. He goes, your prime directive as a man is to be attractive. Now, attraction can be several different things. It can be competency, relevancy, access to scarce resources. It can be high status, it can be pre-selection, it can be charisma, it can be humor, it can be networking, it can also be height and physique, it can also be money. These are all different things that can make you attractive. But your prime directive is to stay attractive. No matter what she says to you, the only thing you need to do, you need to make sure that you're doing, is that you continue validating whatever triggers were necessary for her to find you attractive. What's going on? Sorry about that. That's the prime directive. When you say, I need to, what are the rules of the game? Whatever pulls you away from that. And by the way, you guys will notice when you get into a relationship, you're going to have these comments from your girl where she's going to try to pull you away from your prime directive. The things that made you attractive to her. Let's say you met her and you were a dude who was very popular. You had a lot of guy friends, a lot of female friends. Women found you very attractive, and she tries to pull you out of that environment. So for instance, in my case, I host these huge parties. I host these bikini competitions. If I were dating a woman and then all of a sudden she's like, I don't want you hosting these parties anymore, and I don't want you doing these bikini competitions, I know, because I understand the rules of the game and I understand how psychology works, what's happening is the more I go to these parties, the more leverage I have in the relationship, the more attractive I am, not only with her, but with other women. And so she kind of loses a little bit of leverage here. And she does, by the way, women don't know they're doing this. This is a total subconscious reaction. Remember, it's the elephant who's doing this. It's not the rider. The elephant is giving her pangs like, when women say things like, I don't like guys that have all these other girls. We know that's not true. Anybody you've used pre-selection before on your social media, you know very well that that's just not true. That's just a cope that women say in order to, not put themselves in a situation where they're going to lose power. So let's talk about this, the dynamic. Remember, the prime directive is for you to be more attractive. Let's talk about where the dynamic comes from. So as men do things that gain attraction, so again, they get stronger, they go on better shows, they get a bigger social media following, they make more money, they become more professionally viable, they get a new master's degree, a doctorate, whatever. As they are appreciated by more people and seen as higher status, and women find them more attractive, they get in better shape, whatever the thing is, as they do things to make themselves more attractive, women are losing power and men are gaining power. I want you to think about this. Always think about this. Again, if you're a salesperson and you start selling more than everybody else in your company, you know you're gaining power and your company is losing power in your future negotiations for a new contract. Same thing, you're a football player, you're like a rookie, you win the NFL MVP. In that case, in the negotiation, you're gaining power and the team is losing power, okay? So when you think about men and attraction, when men create more attraction, they're gaining power and women are losing power. When you do things that build more comfort, so comfort is like you start buying her things, you start paying her rent, you start paying, you open doors for her, you buy her flowers, you call her all these, sweet names, you hold her hand in public. These are things, and by the way, I'm not saying you don't do these things. I'm just saying you only do these things for a woman who's earned it. When you do those things, a woman is gaining power and you as a man is losing power. And the ultimate example of this is when a man proposes to a woman, what does he do? He gets down on one knee and gives her a large chunk of his salary in a rock, an inanimate object, to show his love for her and to show how committed he is to her. Now, when a man is getting down on the knee, ask yourself this question, just the first thing that pops up to your mind. When a man gets down on his knee to ask a question, is he gaining power or is he losing power? The whole marriage contract and the marriage industrial complex is a situation, is all built to give women power and to build up comfort, okay? Now, as a man, the thing I'm gonna let you guys know is you can't be all attraction. As much as we'd like to be, and a lot of guys who have been players for a long time and they're still frustrated by women, part of the reason why is because all you do is build attraction. Building attraction is good. If you're gonna build attraction or comfort, the first thing I definitely would work on is attraction. And I will say most of you watching this, your problem is attraction, it's not comfort. But building only attraction, you're the dude who she'll come over in the middle of the night, don't care about other girls being over there, extremely attractive, get chosen as a short-term option. Not super taken seriously, but you know what? It's a lot of fun when you're in your 20s and you're the one getting chose. It's nice. You're actually the dude that she might be cheating on her boyfriend with. That's all attraction and no comfort. She's gonna call you a boy, but right after she calls you a boy, she's going to call an Uber to come over to your house. Okay? So that's all attraction. All comfort is what? You're giving her all the power, and you have no power. So a great example of all comfort is like being like her gay best friend. Okay? Being like her gay best friend. So you're physically attracted to her, and you really like her. And I'm not talking about a woman you're actually friends with. I'm talking about a woman that you have feelings for, but you can't express those feelings because, you know, she doesn't like you, she doesn't see you that way, so you do all these nice things for her trying to gain her affection. Like the story about me earlier when I was, you know, trying to save that girl, took her to the hospital, waited for her outside the hospital room, etc. That's a situation where I was trying to use comfort to build attraction. Comfort needs to come second. Now, not for your friends. For your friends, comfort can come first. But for a woman that you're attracted to, attraction always has to come first. You have to show some level of dominance, alpha behavior, and masculinity. That's what building attraction does. And then in those cases, you're gaining power and she's losing power. And when you think about it, for the most part, in most interactions, most men and women, most women are not attracted to most men, and most men are attracted to most women. You can look at dating apps to see this. About 55% of the time, men swipe right. About 5% of the time, women swipe right. So in most interactions, in a vacuum, the average guy is not in power with the average woman. The average woman knows she can have sex with the average guy, and the average guy is having to do things to get her attraction, try to take risks, because throughout history, about 40% of men have reproduced and about 80% of women. So men are kind of in a deficit to start things off. When you build attraction, now you're gaining power, so we can get to where we're maybe even or a little bit where you have more power than her, and she's losing power, which evens things out. It actually doesn't, you're not manipulating women, you're just actually evening things out. And then once she is shown, so let's consider gentleman game, like something that Justin Waller talks about. If a woman has given you a child, she has been faithful to you, she has given you a child, she's brought peace into your home, and she's made an unbelievable home for her, that woman deserves everything. Let me say that again. If a woman is bringing peace into your home, she's helping you build a solid home, she is nothing but a benefit in your life when it comes to your career and your peace of mind, she's your peace when you come home, and she's giving you a child, that woman deserves everything. Everything. You give her, if she wants a house, you go buy her a house. People say that no, that's being a simp. No, that's not being a simp. She earned that. If a woman gives you a beautiful child and that child is in your arms and you cry, you know, they say you can never cry as a man in front of your girl. No, you can cry then because she earned it. That was something she did. She made an incredible sacrifice for you. That's fine. 99.99999% of you have never had a woman give a sacrifice like that for you. And so she's never earned it. So she should not be getting that emotional response from you and that level of vulnerability. You guys are giving women attention and vulnerability. You guys are giving women all these comfort cues. You're hitting all these comfort triggers for women only because you're physically attracted to them. They did nothing to deserve that attention that you're giving them. Does it make sense? So, one more time. When you give them comfort, you do things for them to build comfort when they deserve it. Say it to yourself. Remember the paradigm, the majority paradigm that most guys see is, I'm doing everything in the world I can to build attraction in this woman because I need to chase her. She's on a pedestal. When women say, oh, what do you bring to the table? A woman says, I am the table. There's a lot of women who believe this. They have a very entitled attitude. When you're dealing with that type of woman, she needs to do something to earn you building comfort with her. But until that, when we're in the early stages, it's only attraction. It's attraction, it's nothing but attraction. You sit there, you're talking to a girl, and then all of a sudden she stands you up. You know what you do? If she stands you up, you sit there and you post on your IG, hey man, I had a great time last night hanging out with my friends at whatever, you're on stage at some club. It doesn't even bother you. It doesn't even affect you. You don't even notice that anything happened. Why? Because that's what an attractive alpha male would do. He would not be affected or burdened. Often women will stand you up because they're trying to see how you react to it. And the answer is you just don't react to it at all. When you do that, you're building attraction. She's losing power, you're gaining power. When you give a woman comfort, which is what 95% of you guys do whenever you meet a woman, she's pretty so you treat her different. When you do that, you're giving her power because you're building comfort, and you're losing power. Okay? And this is a problem. A lot of guys do this. They immediately see a woman who's beautiful and then they start flirting with her and they think this is going to work. I got news for you. Flirting with a woman that you just met will work if she's already attracted to you. And like we just determined, unless you're incredibly good looking, most of the time, most women are not attracted to you. The top 10% of men on dating apps get 63% of the right swipes. The top 20% of men on dating apps get 83% of white swipes. So top 20% of men get about 80% of the attention from women. Most of you watching this, you're watching this because you aren't one of those guys who gets all that attention from women. So when you go into an interaction and you immediately tell a woman that she's beautiful off the rip, what you're doing is that you're playing against the odds. The odds are she's not attracted to you. most women find most men to be below average attractiveness. 80% of men on dating apps, women find to be below average attractiveness. So you're sitting there shooting your shot because you saw some really charismatic or good looking guy do it in a movie, not recognizing that in reality, you have to build attraction. So what do you do? Those attraction triggers that I mentioned earlier in this video, you go back and listen to them. Those triggers are the things that build attraction. And when you do so, you're gaining power and she's losing power. So what I just kind of explained to you in a roundabout way is the game. And remember, you always have to play the game. Even if you don't want to play the game is real. It's like gravity. If you don't believe in gravity, go jump off of a cliff and see what happens. Just because you don't believe in gravity, you can't jump off a parking lot or jump off a cliff or say, I don't believe in gravity. You're still going to die. Gravity's real even if you don't believe it. I know, shout out to all the flat earthers out there who don't believe in gravity. If you believe that gravity is, even if you don't believe gravity is real, it's still real. And even if you don't believe there's a game, you still have to play it, okay? Always remember that. If you guys have any stories in the comments, I got several more that I'm gonna be telling here. You got some stories in the comments where you started treating a girl different just because she was attractive and you thought the game didn't count for her, let me know. And those of you who maybe you've gone through a divorce or horrible breakup because you started acting different, you thought that she was different and that you didn't have to play the game anymore, leave some comments down there. Maybe when you guys join the Men of Action, I would love to hear your stories. Guys, make sure you subscribe because I'm gonna be doing way more videos about this. And please tell me what subjects you guys want me to talk about. I found that when I get out into this mood and I start taking a walk, I tell better stories. So I'm gonna start doing this more often. Hopefully you guys like this new type of video and I will see you guys in the next one.